All right. Ready to dive into history. Well, the history us, I should say.
The history of humankind.
Exactly. You sent over those excerpts from Yuval Noah Harari's book, Sapiens.
Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind.
That's the one. And, well, let's break it down. I mean, from the cognitive revolution to empires, even touching on things like immortality.
Big topics.
Yeah, a lot to cover.
It is interesting, how Harari approaches this. He doesn't take the typical, textbook approach.
Right.
He highlights how, humans like us, Homo sapiens, we walked the earth for ages before, what we think of as history even started.
Really puts things in perspective.
2.5 million years of Homo sapiens just living their lives, blending in.
With the rest of the animal kingdom.
Exactly.
So where does history as we know it begin then?
Well, Harari pinpoints this thing called the cognitive revolution as the turning point. Around 70,000 years ago.
70,000 years ago.
This is when Homo sapiens started to think in a totally different way, fundamentally different.
What changed? Was it a sudden burst of intelligence or?
Not really, no. It's more like Harari emphasizes the power of language.
Okay.
But not just for, basic communication.
Right.
But the ability to believe in things that don't physically exist.
I see. What kinds of things?
Oh, I don't know. Things like nations, corporations, even the concept of human rights.
Okay.
These are all what he calls collective myths.
Collective myths?
That only have power because we all agree that they do.
Like a shared delusion, almost.
Kind of, yeah. But it's this delusion that allows us to build these complex societies, right?
And achieve some incredible things.
Exactly.
So shared beliefs.
Yeah.
Fueled by language.
Right.
That's what enabled this large-scale cooperation.
Which, by the way, no other species has been able to do to the same extent.
Wow.
So these imagined realities, right?
Yeah.
That shape our world.
It's kind of mind-blowing.
It is.
Are there, any tangible examples from these early societies, how they use these shared beliefs?
Absolutely, yeah. There's this Sungir burial site in Russia.
Okay.
Which dates back 30,000 years.
30,000 years?
Yeah, and it offers this fascinating glimpse into their lives.
Okay.
So picture this. Archaeologists unearth a man buried with thousands of ivory beads.
Thousands?
Yeah, something like 3,000 of them.
Wow.
I mean, the craftsmanship alone suggests a really, advanced level of skill and time investment. But then, get this, they discover 2 children buried, head to head, adorned with even more beads.
More than 3,000?
Oh, yeah, over 10,000.
10,000 beads.
It's incredible. And so, this level of adornment, right, it suggests this hierarchical society. Okay. Maybe with leaders and specialized artisans, far earlier than we thought.
Makes you wonder what their lives were like, what stories they told, what significance those beads even held for them.
Exactly. And that, I think, underscores this crucial point that Harari makes. History isn't just about these cold, hard facts, right? It's also about, the narratives we construct.
The myths we embrace.
Exactly.
So how do these ancient myths connect to our lives today?
Well, I think...
Are we still, influenced by these imagined realities?
Absolutely, yeah. To illustrate this, let's compare, the Code of Hammurabi.
Okay.
You know that Babylonian law code from 1750 BC that codified social hierarchies? And then something like, the American Declaration of Independence.
Okay, yeah.
Written in 1776, which championed the equality of all men.
Very different.
Right. But they're both based on these abstract principles.
About justice and how society should be structured.
Exactly.
They make you think, our modern world isn't necessarily more real
or objective
than those of our ancestors.
Exactly. It encourages us to kind of question our assumptions about progress.
The nature of reality itself.
For sure.
Speaking of assumptions, Harari challenges another common narrative, right?
Yeah.
When he talks about the agricultural revolution.
Oh, right.
12,000 years ago.
Yeah.
He suggests it wasn't necessarily the leap forward that we often assume.
Right. He presents this compelling argument that for many, many people, the shift to agriculture, it brought more work, less diverse diets, increased susceptibility to diseases.
Really?
It's a thought-provoking counterpoint, to this traditional view of progress.
Like this linear upward trajectory.
Exactly, yeah.
Hold on. So you're saying that we traded this nomadic hunter-gatherer lifestyle?
Oh, it's not that simple, but...
For longer work hours. And potential health issues.
The point is, there were trade-offs. Imagine like a hunter-gatherer.
Right.
Spending a few hours a day foraging for food.
Okay.
And then compare that to a farmer.
Toiling away from sunrise to sunset.
That's right.
It makes me think about our own lives now. Like the luxury trap that Harari describes.
Yeah, good point.
We're constantly bombarded with messages about needing the latest gadgets, the conveniences. But do those things really make us happier?
That's a good question.
Are we just like chasing an ever-shifting definition of enough?
It's like as we acquire more things, our desires and anxieties also expand, right? It leads to this feeling of being trapped, on a treadmill almost.
We become reliant on things our ancestors couldn't even imagine.
Exactly.
And that creates new anxieties, new pressures.
All right, so the things that are supposed to make our lives easier
end up complicating them.
Yeah, and this tension between progress and its unintended consequences, it becomes even more apparent when you look at the rise of empires.
Empires, colossal entities, shaping the course of civilizations.
Yeah.
Harari highlights how these empires, they often absorb smaller cultures.
Well, societies.
Leading to this trend of increasing complexity, interconnectedness.
And he emphasizes the cyclical nature of empires.
Okay.
They rise, they conquer, they assimilate, and eventually they collapse.
Often leaving this void for new empires to emerge.
Right, and this pattern, it has repeated itself.
Throughout history.
Yeah.
Understanding that is key to understanding, the world we live in today.
I think so.
It's like this never-ending dance of power and influence.
It really is.
And it wasn't just about political control, was it?
No.
Cultures were absorbed. Languages lost.
Traditions forgotten.
Take the Middle East, for example. Harari explains that for the vast majority of the past 3,000 years, the region has been dominated by empires.
One after the other.
Rarely experiencing, a balance of independent states.
Like we see today.
It's a stark reminder of how empires, for all their grandeur, for all their influence...
It can also be forces of cultural, homogenization.
Yeah. But how did these vast empires even function?
It's a good question.
How do they manage their resources, facilitate trade, keep order across such vast distances?
That's where money comes in. Oh. Yeah. It's like one of the most fascinating inventions in human history.
Okay.
Harari, he delves into how money emerged, right? As a system of trust, enabling trade between strangers, fostering these complex economies, connecting people across continents.
It's remarkable how something that essentially has no, intrinsic value can become so powerful. What makes people trust these pieces of paper?
Or digital tokens.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, Harari, he traces the evolution of money from these early forms like barley. Yeah, in ancient Mesopotamia. Then to gold coins, paper money.
And eventually the digital currencies that we use today.
Right. And he argues that trust is at the heart of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Trust in the system.
In the institutions that back it up.
And in the shared belief that these tokens hold value.
It's not just about the physical object itself.
No.
It's about the collective faith that we place in it. Makes you think about the phrase, in God we trust.
Right. On U.S. currency.
It takes on a whole new meaning when you view it through the lens of monetary history.
For sure. Money is deeply intertwined with our social and political beliefs.
Another example of how imagined realities shape our material world.
Absolutely.
But what happens when those beliefs change?
Wow.
When the trust erodes?
No.
That brings us to another pivotal moment in history. The scientific revolution.
Which began, 500 years ago?
About that, yeah.
Harari argues that this revolution was less about acquiring new knowledge and more about acknowledging our ignorance.
Wait, so acknowledging our ignorance is revolutionary?
It was. It was a shift from relying on dogma, ancient texts,
to embracing the idea that we don't have all the answers.
Right.
So it's not about what we know.
It's about how we know it.
Okay.
This new way of thinking led to, groundbreaking inventions and discoveries. The steam engine. Microorganisms, antibiotics.
All these things that have, changed the world.
Exactly.
It seems like the scientific revolution unlocked this new level of understanding. Yeah. Control.
Over the world around us.
But now we face new challenges, new possibilities.
As we grapple with the future of humanity.
Harari doesn't shy away from these big questions, does he?
Not at all. He dives right into the big unknowns. Will we achieve immortality?
How will technology reshape our lives?
What are the potential dangers?
That's a lot.
He explores a wide range of possibilities. genetic engineering, nanotechnology, even, the threat of ecological collapse.
Those are weighty topics.
They are.
But amidst all this talk about technological advancements, the future, Harari brings us back to this fundamental question.
Which is?
What does it mean to be happy? It seems almost too simple.
In the context of all these complex historical forces.
Exactly.
But it's a crucial point. Harari explains that historians and scientists are now studying happiness.
Really?
Yeah, scientifically, I mean. They're measuring something called subjective well-being.
Subjective well-being.
And trying to identify the factors that contribute to it.
So it's not just about having money.
Or the latest gadgets. They're finding that happiness is influenced by a much more complex interplay of factors. Social connections, meaningful relationships.
A sense of purpose?
Even our genetic makeup.
Wow. It's fascinating that happiness can be, studied scientifically.
It is.
But it makes you wonder if we're overthinking it. Maybe happiness is simpler than we make it out to be.
That's a great point. And it brings us back to one of Harari's central themes.
Okay.
Our understanding of the world, including happiness, is shaped by the stories we tell ourselves.
Those imagined realities we've been discussing.
Exactly.
They keep popping up, don't they?
They do.
It's like they're woven into the very fabric of human history and experience.
They are.
So much to think about. We've covered so much ground. And this is only the first part of our deep dive.
I know, right?
What stands out to you so far? What's making you rethink your own assumptions about history and humanity?
Well, for me, one thing that really hit home is this idea that progress often comes with unexpected downsides.
Like a hidden cost.
Yeah, like we saw with the agricultural revolution, right? The shift to farming led to these new challenges.
Longer hours.
Less varied diets.
Disease.
Right. And we see it again with empires, where this drive for expansion and control, it resulted in cultural assimilation.
Sometimes even the disappearance of entire groups of people.
Exactly.
It's this constant push and pull, isn't it?
Between
advancement and its unintended consequences. We strive for improvement, but sometimes we just create new problems.
It's true. This tension is at the core of so many issues we're grappling with today.
Like what?
The complexities of globalization, for one, the impact of technology.
And speaking of globalization, how does that fit into Harari's narrative? Does he see it as a continuation of this trend towards larger, more interconnected societies?
Absolutely, yeah. He argues that, humans have been weaving together this single global network for millennia.
Really?
Driven by forces like empires. Trade.
Even religion.
Yeah.
So it's not just a modern phenomenon.
Not at all. The book, it traces the roots of globalization back to ancient trade routes.
Like the Silk Road.
Exactly, connecting East and West.
Centuries ago.
And empires themselves, right, with their reach and ambition, they played a role in bringing different cultures into contact.
Though not always peacefully.
Of course not.
It seems like humanity has always had this urge, right, to connect, expand, explore.
Yeah.
But it hasn't always been a harmonious process.
Definitely not. I mean, empires often relied on violence and coercion to maintain power, right?
Right.
And the clash of cultures, that's been a source of conflict.
Throughout history.
For sure.
Harari doesn't shy away from the darker aspects of human history, does he?
He doesn't.
He acknowledges the violence, the suffering.
It's important to acknowledge those difficult truths.
But he also points out the incredible resilience of human cultures.
Right.
Their ability to adapt, to survive, even in the face of adversity.
It's quite remarkable.
History is complex.
Messy.
And full of contradictions.
It is.
And understanding that complexity, I think.
Yeah.
It's crucial if we want to address the challenges we face today.
Absolutely.
Speaking of complexity, how does religion fit into this global tapestry that Harari describes? It seems like it could be, both a unifying force and a source of division.
Yeah, it's a great point. The book argues that religion has been one of the most powerful unifying forces in human history, right alongside those empires and trade networks we talked about earlier.
But so often we see religions clashing, causing conflict, division.
That's true. But Harari makes a distinction between types of religion.
Okay.
He differentiates between what he calls universal missionary religions and those that are more localized.
Focused on specific communities?
Traditions, yeah.
Okay, so it's these universal religions.
Christianity, Islam, Buddhism.
They have had the biggest impact on globalization.
Yes. Precisely because of their drive to, like, spread their message to everyone. Everywhere.
It's led to the conversion of billions of people.
And created this sense of shared belief.
That transcends cultural boundaries.
Exactly.
It's mind-boggling. The scale of that influence. But how do these universal religions actually manage to unify such diverse populations? What's the common thread?
Well, Harari explains that these religions, they offer this universal superhuman order.
Superhuman order.
A set of beliefs and values, right?
Okay.
That are considered true, regardless of location, culture.
That creates this shared identity, shared purpose.
Right, that can bridge cultural divides.
It's almost like societal glue.
Binding people together on this global scale.
And it's not just about the shared beliefs, is it?
No, it's also about the taste.
These religions have, like, rituals, practices, institutions.
That create a sense of community, belonging.
Churches, mosques, temples, pilgrimage sites. These are physical spaces, social spaces, where people from different backgrounds can come together, express their shared faith.
Exactly.
Makes you appreciate the power of rituals and shared experiences,
That's right?
To create this sense of connection. Even if you don't, like, personally subscribe to that particular religion.
For sure.
But even with these unifying forces, Harari doesn't sugarcoat things.
Yeah.
He acknowledges that conflict has always been part of the human story.
Of course. Like we discussed earlier, empires rise and fall.
Whoa.
Cultures clash. Religions compete.
Right.
Conflict is an undeniable thread in the tapestry of human history.
But has conflict always been as destructive as it is today?
That's a good question.
With modern weaponry, global interconnectedness, it seems like the stakes are higher than ever.
It's a valid concern, but Harari actually argues that the late modern era, despite its, conflicts, it's actually been the most peaceful period in human history.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
But what about the 2 world wars, the Cold War? All those conflicts.
Those were horrific.
They ravaged the world.
Absolutely. But Harari suggests that we tend to focus on, like, the puddles of violence, right? Oh. While overlooking the vast dry land of peace that surrounds them.
I see.
He argues that the majority of people alive today, they live in societies that aren't actively experiencing war.
That's a perspective I hadn't really considered.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the headlines, lose sight of the bigger picture.
It is, and Harari encourages us to zoom out, to look at the long arc of history.
So he suggests that while violence and conflict are part of, like, the human story, there's also been this gradual decline.
In the overall level of violence, at least on a large scale.
So are we getting better at resolving our differences peacefully?
Maybe.
Or is this just like a temporary lull?
Before the next major conflict.
Right.
That's the million-dollar question. And, Harari doesn't offer easy answers, but he suggests that the decline in violence might be related to the rise of global institutions like the United Nations and a growing awareness of the interconnectedness of all humanity.
So it's interesting to think that the very forces of globalization that have, like, brought us closer together,
for better or worse,
could also be contributing to a more peaceful world.
It's possible.
But even if large-scale wars are becoming less common, there's still, so much suffering, poverty, inequality, injustice.
It's true.
These issues haven't gone away.
And Harari doesn't shy away from those challenges.
That's good.
He reminds us that the quest for happiness and well-being, it's ongoing.
And it's something we need to work towards.
Actively work towards.
So how do we even measure happiness?
Well,
it seems like such a subjective concept.
It is. But Harari, he delves into how social scientists and biologists are starting to study happiness.
Really?
Yeah, in this scientific way. They're measuring what they call subjective well-being.
Subjective well-being.
Through surveys, questionnaires,
Yeah.
trying to pinpoint the factors that contribute to, a sense of fulfillment. Exactly.
So it's not just about how much money we have, how comfortable our lives are.
No. They're finding that happiness is influenced by this wide range of factors.
Like what?
Social connections.
Yeah.
Meaningful relationships. Having a sense of purpose in life. And even our genetic predispositions.
Wow, so much is outside of our control. It's fascinating that happiness can be, like, studied scientifically.
It is.
But again, it makes you wonder if we're, like, overthinking it.
Overthinking happiness.
Yeah. Maybe it's simpler than what we make it out to be.
Maybe. And it brings us back to one of Harari's core arguments.
Which is?
Our understanding of the world, including our pursuit of happiness, is shaped by the stories we tell ourselves.
Those imagined realities that have played such a prominent role.
Throughout history, yeah.
They keep coming back, don't they?
It's like they're these invisible threads connecting all of human experience.
Now, that's some food for thought. This deep dive is really like making me rethink my assumptions about the past, the present, the future. What stands out to you as we kind of wrap up this part of our discussion? What's making you question your own understanding of history and the human journey? One of the things that really struck me, is how Harari tackles this idea of immortality. He calls it the Gilgamesh Project.
The Gilgamesh Project.
It sounds like science fiction.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But Harari presents it as this very real ambition that humans have been grappling with.
For centuries.
He points out that this desire to cheat death, it's a recurring theme.
In myths and legends.
Oh, yeah, from the ancient epic of Gilgamesh to, modern-day obsessions with youth, longevity.
So it's not just a scientific pursuit. It's like deeply embedded in our psychology.
Yeah, social narratives, yeah.
Makes you wonder, what would even happen if we actually achieved immortality?
Whoa.
Right.
That's a huge question.
Yeah.
And Harari, he doesn't shy away from exploring the implications.
Okay.
Imagine a world where death is no longer inevitable.
Okay. Yeah.
What would that mean for our societies, our values?
Our understanding of what it means to be human.
Right. It's almost too much to comprehend.
It is, yeah.
And Harari takes it even further. He even discusses the possibility of humans merging with technology.
Whoa.
Creating this new hybrid species.
That could transcend our current limitations.
Yeah.
It's both exhilarating.
And unsettling.
To think about a future where the line between human and machine becomes blurred.
Right.
It challenges our assumptions about what it means to be human.
It does.
But it also speaks to the incredible adaptability of Homo sapiens.
Yeah.
We've evolved from hunter-gatherers.
To city dwellers.
From farmers to factory workers.
So is this just the next step
in our evolution?
It's a possibility.
Okay.
And it's one that Harari encourages us to think critically about. He reminds us that technological advancements, they don't necessarily equal greater happiness or well-being.
Okay.
He cautions against blindly embracing technology.
Without considering the potential downsides.
Right.
So it's not just about the what of technological progress.
It's the why.
And the how.
Exactly.
We need to be mindful of the choices we make.
As individuals.
And as a society.
And
consider the long-term implications.
For sure. And it's not just about technology either. Harari also challenges us to examine our values, our priorities.
Okay.
If happiness isn't simply a product of material wealth or technological advancement, then what does it mean to live a good life? What gives our lives meaning, purpose?
These are questions that philosophers have been, wrestling with for centuries.
Yeah.
It's something each of us has to grapple with, on a personal level.
But Harari's book, I think, it provides a framework for thinking about these big questions in a new light.
Informed by our understanding of human history.
The forces that have shaped who we are.
It is humbling to realize that we're just one small chapter in this epic story of humanity.
It is. But it's also empowering.
We're not just passive recipients of history. We have the ability to shape the future.
To make choices that create, a more just, a more sustainable, a more fulfilling world.
I love that perspective.
Harari's book, it's like a call to action.
Okay.
It reminds us that we're all participants in this grand experiment called humanity.
And we have the power to write the next chapter.
We do.
So after this whirlwind tour through the history of humankind, what's the biggest takeaway for you? What resonated most deeply?
For me, it's this realization that progress isn't a straight line.
Okay.
It's messy.
Full of contradictions.
Unintended consequences.
Right.
And we have this responsibility to be aware of those complexities and make choices that lead to a better future, not just for ourselves, but for all of humanity.
Beautifully said. And with that, we wrap up our deep dive into Sapiens.
Wow, time flies.
We've covered a lot of ground, but we've really only scratched the surface of this book.
It's a thought-provoking one.
Yeah. What final thoughts would you leave our listener with?
I would encourage our listener to continue exploring these ideas. Pick up a copy of Sapiens. Delve deeper into the topics that sparked your curiosity. And most importantly, keep questioning, keep learning, keep engaging with the big questions about humanity, about our place in the universe.
Yeah.
The future is unwritten, and understanding the past gives us the power to shape it.
What a perfect note to end on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the history of humankind. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those big questions.